Are you looking for a girl crush? Do you miss those summers of gossip and girlfriends and temporary boys? If so, then you're going to relive those days right now. Today, we're going to talk about 5 stories that will have you meeting and falling in love with your best friend. They're going to have you keeping each other's secrets. They're going to have you falling in love with the same boy. Or one of you falls in love with that boy and then the other one steals him away. Girl code is a big no-no. When you're 14 and in a novel, then it's absolutely mandatory. And then you're gonna have to move away from each other, and then you're gonna come back together, and then you're gonna protect each other, and then you're gonna act like nothing ever happened, even though for the rest of your relationship, you're both gonna know what happened, and it's gonna color everything else that happens for the rest of the time that you're in each other's lives, if you get to be in each other's lives for a long time, because sometimes somebody mysteriously disappears. I'm Amanda, this is Most Bookish, and we are going to go on another book review ride through the 90s because nostalgia, because that was my teenage years. And we're going to wander into the 2000s, getting up into an honorable mention that's of the todays, because these girlhood friendships are forever. And you keep seeing them pop up in different forms with some differences in the actual story, but very common identifiers throughout them all. I am talking about the love affairs between teenage girls. The love affairs that begin when girls are teenagers and sometimes span decades and often rival every other love affair that they have for the rest of their lives. How do I know this? I have had teenage love affairs. I have had BFFs forever. So you're saying to me, Amanda, you're saying to me one of two things at this point. You're saying, Amanda, I totally remember, and the nostalgia is overwhelming me, and I so want to go back to that time. I want to take that ride again, as crazy as it was. And then if this isn't familiar to you, you might be asking yourself, what in the world could lead to that kind of drama? What makes teenage girl love affairs so powerful? Like, why are they so crazy? What is happening? I'm going to tell you. This person sweeps into your life, your usually mundane, everyday life, where you thought nothing was going to happen, nothing exciting was going to happen this summer, and they love everything about you. They almost want to be you. They think that you're the most interesting, exciting thing ever. You get chosen. How do you say no to that? How do you not feel special? The next phase of this strengthening love affair is that you start to tell each other your secrets. You start to feel so safe with this person who wants nothing from you other than yourself that you start to tell them all of the secrets you never told anybody else. And not just the secrets, but the embarrassing secrets, the things that you have felt ashamed to talk to other people about. And the next really important component when you're sharing those secrets is that there's no judgment. You are both having the same kinds of feelings. Like our young girl feelings and thoughts feel like so big or so difficult. And then you meet somebody who has those same feelings and thoughts and you're like, oh, the whole time there was somebody out there just like me. There is no judgment, but there's definitely jealousy. And it's not the competitive kind. It's really more of the possessive kind. Like, you belong to me now and you're not allowed to share your time or attention with anyone else. Also, there is, again, a bit of the coming back to, I want to be you. Like, I want to inhabit your space, be like right close next to you all the time. It's just part of it. It's okay. Don't get scared. It's a good thing. We enjoy this at that age. And then another really important component is that this person is irreplaceable. For however many decades that follow in your life, you are never going to be able to duplicate this kind of relationship because you're going to get older and you're going to become more jaded or have more experiences. And this kind of innocence, this fully opening to somebody that allows you to have no barriers and almost occupy the same space with this person, it's almost impossible for the rest of your life. So they become this cherished being, no matter how much they hurt you, no matter how far away you go or the things that have happened, there is still always a pull back to them because they encompass a part of you that nobody else knows and that probably almost never comes out anymore. And then, especially for the purposes of art, there has to be the dynamic, right? There has to be the quieter one, the smart girl, doesn't get into a lot of trouble. And then there has to be like the wild one who blows into town or who just moved in or who's at the summer place that you're staying. And they're completely different. Their background's completely different. They either have way more money than you, or they had a much harder life, or they're more developed as a kind of adultish young girl versus just being a young girl. There's an innocence there that you still have that she doesn't have. And she's attracted to you because of it, but she wants to bring you more into her side. And you are lured in because you didn't want to be the kind of more dangerous girl, but you wanted to get close to it. You wanted to be as close to it as possible. And that's it. I mean, that's simple, right? Those are some really simple guidelines for a normal teenage girl friendship. And if this sounds like a fun ride, or if this sounds like something that you miss from your teenage years, then you're in the right place. And if you're going to tell me that you did not have a scandalous love affair when you were a teenager, I think you're lying. And if you're not lying, I feel bad for you because that's so sad. But it doesn't have to be like, life or death and insane craziness, but that kind of whirlwind of, I just love this person so much and I want to be around them all of the time. And this is like the most exciting thing that has happened in my little life. That feeling, I hope that we have all had it. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the original girl affair. Judy Blume's Summer Sisters. Now, this was written in 1998 by Judy Blume, and at the time, it was one of either 2 or 3 adult books that she had written. Judy Blume, in case you've lived under a rock somewhere, is a very prolific children's author. She's actually got a couple of books on the banned books list, which is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and I think Deanie might be. I'm not sure though. And then recently, they had a book of hers that was like a teenage love affair called Forever, made into a movie on, I think, Netflix, and it was super popular. And I have read all of those. I was a Judy Blume girl. I also did her middle grade books, like the Fudgemania books, but that's for a much younger audience. I think today she has one more adult book, which is In the Unlikely Event, which is about plane crashes. And they were advertising it when I was in the airport, and she hadn't written a new book in so long that I was like, a Judy Blume book, I have to get it. And I was reading it on the plane. Do not recommend. Do not recommend. So Summer Sisters was the original love affair, at least for me. All this is based off of my experience, right? Like, we're not talking about history of all time. This was the original girl love affair that I fell in love with. There were a few things about this book that made it so exciting. It was my introduction to that dynamic of like the smart, quiet girl getting pulled into the craziness by the wild girl. It's during the summer and they're summering on Martha's Vineyard, which felt so glamorous and exciting to me. And then also she uses this writing method of changing from person to person as she's telling the story, which allows you to insert kind of some surprises when you're in somebody else's narrative, a la George R.R. Martin, as he ends up doing very famously in a Game of Thrones decades later. Or actually, I don't know when the original Game of Thrones was written because it takes him like 5 years to write every single one of those books. So it might have even been around the same time. You have the kind of good girl, the wild girl who shows up, and they have summer hijinks. Like it's, falling in love with boys, it's doing things they're not supposed to be, it's staying out late, it's pretending like she's going to her friend's house when they're really going to go on some adventure they're not supposed to go on. There's betrayals, there's I'll love you forevers, there's that none of these boys mean anything to me, you're the one who's important to me. There's a lot of damaged girl stuff and acting out because of that damage. And in the end, the main character, Victoria, which she's called Vix throughout the story, Vix goes through a lot of craziness because of Caitlin, who is the wild girl who comes in, but it's all worth it because she gets to have this version of her life that she never would have had if Caitlin hadn't shown up. And she ends up loving her no matter what. There's very much like the cool girl that chooses me, that whole feeling of, oh, am I special? And this was, I want to say, probably my first encounter with a mysterious ending where you were like, wait, but what happened? Because they get into a part of their adulthood, there's a rift, there's a coming back together, and at the end of the story, you are left wondering, like, what happened? And it felt like there are times where I read books where that feels so frustrating, but with this book, it just left me with like a melancholy and a nostalgic feeling for the innocence of their youth, like that changing of being young and making stupid mistakes and then getting into adulthood and doing things that are really harmful and hurtful to our lives and having to live with them. Like it just feels so sad that things aren't simple anymore. The entire tone of the book is like done so well. Today, the writing is probably a little more simplistic than I would be attracted to. I still gave it 4.5 pandas because this is Judy Blume and this is Summer Sisters. Like, if you do not read this one first, you have to read this one first. If you do not read this one first, you have no idea what you're missing out on. Like, it's so worth it. Do it. It's simplistic, but it's so great. It's like one of those comfort reads, you know? So after you've done the whole drama, the whole meeting and falling in love with your best friend, it's time to move on. Now, this next book I do not have with me. I have no idea what I did with it. So I'm going to insert a pictorial. It is Jodi Picoult's My Sister's Keeper. There are the friends that we meet throughout our life journey in the world. And then there are the friends that we are given by our family, which is our sisters. And the sister best friend is a very different kind of friendship, but I would argue that they're both equally powerful. And I know that there are some people, especially sisters, who would not agree with this because they would say, this is my blood. This is much more powerful. The thing is, though, that the other friend is a chosen friend, whereas a sister, you don't choose. And I feel like there's more friction because of that dynamic sometimes. Even though all these books, wild friction, because, you know, they're stories. You gotta have friction in stories. My Sister's Keeper was written in 2004. Jodi Picoult is a very popular author. Again, like a Judy Blume in the sense that she's very popular. Completely different writing segment. She is classified as fiction. However, I would argue that she's a bit of like thriller fiction because she writes very fast-paced, suspenseful stories that are not always a whodunit because there's not always like a crime, but there is a hidden truth that she is propelling us toward. A revelation somewhere, a understanding of what's actually going on that is completely opposite to what she told us what was going on in the beginning or what you were thinking was going on. I've read multiple of her books. Problem with this kind of formula is that she repeats it. I haven't read any of her books in a while, so I don't know if she stops repeating it, but she repeats it and she had some really great books for a period of time because of that. Then you're kind of waiting for that same thing and it gets a little too familiar. However, My Sister's Keeper was one of her biggest stories. My Sister's Keeper is about two sisters. One, Kate, who's the older sister, who was diagnosed with leukemia. And the parents decided to have a genetically modified child who would be compatible to Kate to be able to use her bone marrow to help keep Kate alive. So Anna was basically born to be a kind of parts dispensary for Kate. Now, that sounds very sad and a bit horrific. And we're meeting the girls when Anna's 13. And she's come to the decision that she wants to emancipate herself from her parents so that she can start saying that she does not want to allow them to use her body. Because her whole 13 years, she has been through all of these procedures, all of these surgeries, all of these things that have been really painful and difficult for her. And she doesn't want to do it anymore. Throughout this, there is this, I love my sister, but there is a tension there. And it's a much more severe tension than is usually found between sisters. But it is this same kind of idea of I love you so much, but also sometimes I hate you. And the tension in the story builds up. The family is upset with her that she's doing this because this would result in her sister's eventual death. And there's just this kind of breakdown of the entire family system that's swirling around the central relationship between the two sisters. Because there's what the parents planned, what the parents had wanted, but then there's the sisters' world, which they have their own world. And that's another theme that you see in these relationships, these best friendships between girls, is that there's their life happening, but then there's the world between them two. And nobody really can fully penetrate or understand that world. And the fact that they can't penetrate it in this particular story is what creates this inside story that ends up coming out at the end. And it is shocking. Like when I tell you it's unexpected and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. This is crazy. The entire story, like you'll read it so fast. There is a need to become autonomous. There's a self-determination aspect to this that's happening for these girls. There's a becoming of young women that they're going through in the midst of this really difficult situation. And they turn this into a movie. The narration is done by Anna, by the 13-year-old, which can be difficult to have a kid narrate a story and it not seem less serious, but not like in a weird, inauthentic way that a kid wouldn't speak. She plays that dynamic really well. And the girl who plays Anna in the movie, Abigail Breslin, was really famous at that time for being a perfect kind of miniature adultish child who was still childish. And Cameron Diaz plays her mother. I think it's one of Cameron Diaz's best roles. It's a really good movie. So I gave this one 4 pandas. This one, that's somewhere over here. I gave it 4 pandas because it's a really good story, period. And all of the pandas in this video are based off of the whole girl love affair dynamic. It's not based off like writing in the world because I'm comparing them to each other more than like literature because they're a very specific sub-genre that's so important and I have so much love for it. I'm not going to do that to them. So within this world, within the girl love affair world, My Sister's Keeper is a 4 panda. It's a solid story and you'll get through it so fast and you will be shocked. Now you can never read it again because once the shock is over, it's like The Sixth Sense. Like once you see the ending, that's like the movie. So you're secret sharing, right? Like you're in the trenches with your best friend and the stakes are at different levels depending on the story. So some are sisters, it's much more boys and am I gonna mess my life up type deal, right? That's how it feels. And then Jodi Picoult becomes like very serious stakes because this is health and this is life. Then we go back in time to another pair of sisters, which is The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. Now, if you don't know the story, I don't know where you've been. If you don't know at least the movie, because the movie was a big deal. It starred Natalie Portman and Scarlett Johansson, Eric Bana as Henry VIII. Like, I know you know the story. I know you know the story. If you're watching this, you definitely know the story, right? Because we're on the same page. So The Other Boleyn Girl is basically the historical fiction version of a My Sister's Keeper type of thing. Now, what I will say is I guess this could technically be like the original girl BFF love affair because it was multiple hundreds of years ago. Like this, the story itself is based off a true relationship. And so it predates Judy Blume by quite a bit, but it was written in 2001. So prior to Henry getting into his whole divorcing or beheading or getting rid of my wife and finding a new wife era, he was a one-wife husband, but he would have a lot of mistresses. He had numerous children out of wedlock with these women, and in the court, it was accepted and a part of everyday life that all of these really wealthy and powerful families would put their daughters in King Henry's path in the hopes that King Henry would like them and then sleep with them and then have children with them and then give them things, and not just give them things, but give their family things. And this would even happen with daughters who were already married. Were the wives who were already married. Mary was one of those women. And so she became Henry's lover. The way that she's painted is like a very docile young woman. Her uncle and her father machinate to set this whole thing up. And she ends up having, I want to say, 2 children with him. And she has the kids with him. He sends her back to her husband and she accepts the situation as it is. Enter Anne Boleyn and the story that we know where she held out and upended the whole status quo and said, if you want me, you have to marry me. And she got Henry to go against the church and make himself the head of his own church and divorce Catherine of Aragon, and Anne Boleyn becomes his wife. Throughout this whole story, Mary is still closely tied with Anne. It's not like Mary's like, I can't believe you took my man. Get away from me, and I never want to see you again. They stay tied. Like, Mary's hurt, but she also understands the politics. She understands what's going on. Everybody accepts that Anne has this opportunity for their family, and she becomes the prize horse at this point, unfortunately. And throughout meeting and courting and the craziness that's happening, Mary ends up being Anne's closest confidant and protector in some circumstances. And especially as everything starts disintegrating and the danger starts coming, Mary's the one who helps her, who in her innocence is the most trusted and the only person she can turn to at times, which is another theme in all of these things. There's the crazy girl or the wild girl who hurts the good girl, but then that ends up being the only person that they have left and they need them. And so So the surprises in this story don't end up being what happens to Anne Boleyn because we know the history, we know what happens. It's what happens with Mary because you didn't know that story. It's another really propulsive story. Philippa Gregory is an amazing historical fiction author. I think I've read every single one of her books. They've been made into many TV shows on Stars. The White Queen. I don't know what else was on there off the top of my head, but she writes a book, and also she has some fiction that's not directly based on historical figures, and they're phenomenal stories as well. She doesn't write as often now. She has such a large catalog that you can go through, I don't know, 20 books, maybe more. Have a field day if you haven't heard of her. Within this realm of BFF stories, I would call this one a 4.5, but a genuine 4.5. Not like my Judy Blume 4.5, which is partially because it's a great story, but partially because it's Judy Blume. This is a 4.5 because Philippa Gregory is just a phenomenal writer. This story is so good. You are really going to love it. So we went from royal BFFs, we went from history's BFFs, we went from sister BFFs, and now we're going to move up, not just in history, but also in modern writing. And we're going to talk about one that I read way before it became really popular on TikTok, BookTok, but that's a really spectacular girl friendship. And I feel like is so in the vein of Summer Sisters. And it is the first story that I've read that's really so closely paired to that and just done so well. And it's done at like a modern and higher level and a larger scope. It's brilliant. And that's why it's called My Brilliant Friend, by Elaine Ferrante. This is basically Italian Summer Sisters. This is the first book. There are 4 books in this story. This follows a friendship between Lila and Lanu in Italy in the 1950s. And when I tell you that reading this is like being transported into the 1950s, the entire vibe, like it's literally a teleportation device. It's like there are books that are set in certain places, and then there are books that take you to a time and place, and this story is one of those stories. It's basically a friendship where they grew up together. So it's from the beginning, it's through multiple decades of their lives. It has so many of the same tropes as Summer Sisters. It has the quieter one, it has the wilder one, it has the boy conflict, it has the betrayal, it has the suffering and you're the only one who can help me. It has a certain cosmopolitan flair because they're flying to different places. It's not having taken place in one space during that time. And it feels like saga-ish because it's across so many years. And it has that magic of Summer Sisters in the end where it leaves you in this place of like, oh my God, what just happened? She writes this so beautifully. It is literally one of my favorite books that I've read in probably like the last 10 plus years. One of my favorite stories that I've read in the last 10 plus years. The cover art on all of these is beautiful. It's just so perfectly well done. I would give this one, in this genre, I would give this one 4.75. I can't do 5 because 5 feels like the most perfect pandas ever. I have to reserve that for like 3 books, I feel like. But if it's in this, okay, within, I said I wasn't comparing it to all books. So if you're talking about within this grouping, this would be a 5-star. This would be a 5 panda read. Out of the BFF, girl love, summer fling of my life, like love affair of my life, my confidant, my actual soulmate, even though I'm with all of these other boys, they're never going to matter as much. No matter how many times I get married, I'm about grandma, and this person is still like the closest to my heart, then I would say this is probably a 5 panda story for sure. I know that they turned this one into a series, and I've heard really good reviews for the series, and I actually want to watch it. That's the only one out of all of these that has been turned into a movie or series, and I haven't seen it. I do want to watch it because of the reviews being so good. And I actually haven't read these in quite a few years, and there are portions that I've forgotten. So it might be one of the few times that I'm watching something made from a book and it's not driving me crazy that it's not exactly matching the book because I'm not going to have remembered. We're going to check it out and I'm going to tell you guys about it. Only other story from this group that has not been adapted into something else is Summer Sisters. It was optioned years ago and it was supposed to be turned into a series, and I feel like it would be an amazing series, but for some reason they haven't developed it. I think it was during COVID when when it was optioned, and that maybe slowed things down. But today, I don't know what's going on with it. And if anybody does know and you want to leave it in the comments, that would be amazing. I know they did forever, so I'm hoping Judy's kind of on a renaissance right now, if renaissance right now, and hopefully Summer Sisters is next. Now, we had the best friends who were sisters. We had the best friends in Italy. We had the best friends who started it all. Now we're going to talk about, it's a TV show, but I had to include it because it was such a staple of my teenage life and also perfectly encompassed this type of relationship. And that was the show My So-Called Life. It only aired for 2 seasons on MTV, but if you know, you know. First of all, that's where we met Jared Leto. Jordan Catalano. I'm going to leave that there. All right. It is a story about Angela Chase. She's just entered her sophomore year in high school. And as happened to a lot of us, she decided who she has been this whole time is not who she really is. And she dyes her hair red and she goes back to school with a whole new persona. Her friends that she had before aren't fitting her anymore. And this new quirky, wild friend that fits the road that she wants to go down, named Rayanne, is the person that she starts spending all her time with. She likes a boy, because of course she likes a boy. It's all awkward. They have a little bit of a friend group. It's her, Rayanne, and their other really good friend, Ricky, who is the first time that I saw real representation of a gay character in a teenage TV show. And it was around the time where you were starting to see more of that, right? Then the real world comes and you have Pedro, who is a gay man who's living with HIV, and there's this whole different era of conversation in media felt real to the teenagers who were consuming it at the time in a way that all of the made-up TV shows like Full Houses didn't. My So-Called Life was canceled after a couple seasons, but it has remained a cult classic. It's available to stream on Hulu. It's just, I don't know if it's actually perfect because they only got those 2 seasons and they didn't have a chance to mess it up, but like the vibe of this, at this change in life, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm messing it all up. My friends are trying to support me, but we're hurting each other all the time in the middle of this because none of us knows what we're doing. And my friends are the most important thing ever. This girl who came into my life is changing my life. Like, it encompasses all of these feelings so well. It is literally perfection. Watch it. And that show walked so that Euphoria could run. Okay, that's like an honorable mention. Euphoria is all of the same things as all of these books, except for like hyper wild. The girl group of friends encompasses the kind of chaos that I've talked about in a lot of these stories. Instead of it being emotionally evocative, it's more sensational. And they do that on purpose, right? And then obviously drug abuse and addiction is a huge part of that story. And one of their main characters passed away from that. I don't know if they're going to keep the show going. So it kind of crossed over into a bit of reality and a sad ending that you actually see come up in multiple of these stories. Like and that's the only part. I don't know if it's problematic or if it's just speaking truth to power, because a lot of these stories reduce this kind of time in a teenage girl's life, this girl love that happens, to like fights over boys and drama and competitions of a type. And so that can feel made up for entertainment, but at the same time, it echoes so truthfully to us because it's like during those years, we're so performative, we're so like wild and ridiculous and just doing things that have results that we don't expect because we're not thinking about it. We don't know what the hell we're doing. And so it rings true. That's why we love it, right? But then you see some of it and you're like, it's not all that. Like, the wild girl doesn't always have to end up in a bad end. The good girl isn't always the one who ends up okay. Like, stop making us these tropes, because young girls and their stories are complicated and fantastic and entertaining and heartbreaking. And you're just like hoping so much for them that they make it out alive, literally. And you just love them so much. You're rooting for them so much. So I really hope that you enjoyed this Most Bookish episode. I really enjoyed going through all of these. These are some of my favorites that are going to be my forever favorites. If you like this kind of nostalgic trip through time, then you can check out my Memoirs of a Geisha story, because that was all happening in that same time period. The Jurassic Park story also. Like, my FYI, my teenagerhood was fire. The 90s were fire. If you have any other decade that you think was better, I'm just telling you now, it wasn't. It wasn't. Also, I'm going to start a series where I watch a movie that was very popular in the 90s and the book that it came from. For most of them, I either haven't watched the movie or I haven't read the book. So that's going to be really interesting because I just love a nostalgic vibe. And if you love a nostalgic vibe, you're at the right place. The next video is going to be LGBTQ badassery for the summer months. Pride is every month. So we're going to do that video next month. It's going to be the energy that you need for the summer. I promise you. This is going to be the girl energy you need for the summer. That is going to be the Pride fabulous energy that you need for the summer. If you have any recommendations that were your girl love affair, whether it's a book or a movie staple, that they were your number one, that is my story. I love it. I go back to it every year. I reread it all the time. Leave that down in the comments. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, book friends. Oh, like, subscribe, click all the buttons, do all the things. Come back. We're still going to be here. Bye, guys.